and I'm hydrophobic. Heroin addicts want to take showers, because the high comes down and you just feel, so I'm dirty all the time, I'm stinking. Even this boyfriend of mine doesn't even want me around. The friends I would party with, these high-end friends, these elite people, they'd want to be around me, We're meeting at Sankara. I'm walking to that Sankara with slippers and I'm dirty and I'm so, disheveled. And it also gives you a false sense of confidence. So I was locked in for a year. When I came out, obviously I relapsed. I felt so good, like 1,000 orgasms, right? I didn't know, I knew it wasn't cocaine, but at the time, I wasn't sure what it was. I just knew it's not cocaine. It's a hard drug, definitely. It feels so good, but I didn't know what it was. I just knew it's not cocaine. So I didn't yet come to the realization that, wait, this is heroin and this is so, so bad. I think I didn't even want to think about it. I was just sort of like on a roll. I just wanted to party. I didn't want to be serious about anything. No, but I knew this thing is different. That's why when I went back to the cottage and I went back with the French guy so he could keep supplying me for the 4 days I was there, all my friends, and I even had a cousin there at the time, they kept asking me to try this thing and I would always refuse. I think deep down I knew this thing is really bad. This is not the usual cocaine that I'm playing with. This is something different. Because even when I would look at the French guy, he looked like a dead man walking. He was emaciated completely. You could see his rib cage. His skin was hanging off his bones. His hair was matted down on his head. His eyes were so dull. He looked like he hadn't slept for years. His teeth were rotted out. His clothes were dirty with holes. So I knew whatever this man is taking and what I'm taking is no good. But I kept telling myself that I'm here for 4 days. It's just to party. What happens in the coast stays in the coast. It's all good. So coming back to the city, coming back to Nairobi, this is when now I started to know that, wait, this is heroin. When I came back, we came back with a bus. It's a long story. My friends left us there and it became a long story, but we came back with a bus. The bus ride back to Nairobi, which was about 8 to 10 hours, was absolute hell for me. I felt like I was dying. I felt like my body was shutting down. My skin was on fire. I felt as if I couldn't even see. My eyesight was so blurry. I couldn't focus. Sounds kept going in and out. Like, it was like I had an amplifier in my ears, ching, and then suddenly quiet, I felt as if my bones was being twisted. My muscles had locked. My spine, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't comfortable. I was just restless, I was like, what is this? What is this? And deep down, I knew because I already used a lot of ecstasy. I've already used a lot of cocaine. I know there's a come down. With certain hard drugs, there's a come down. So I knew this is a come down. And I knew the way to solve this problem is to get the drug. I didn't care that these withdrawals will happen again if I don't get the drug later. I was just living for now. It was like I was living a day at a time. What is it called? YOLO. You only live once, 24 hours. So when I got to the city, I got to Nairobi. I went to my boyfriend's house. He lived closer to Kawangware. He lived in like next to Amboseli, right? So I called the guy who usually brings me marijuana, and I tell him, "Hey, listen, I used this thing in the coast. It was this powder. It looked like this, and he just shouted, 'Oh, unasema kete, unataka kete?' I was like, nataka kete, lete kete." So anitumeni ngiri moja. So when he sent the 1,000 bob, he came with the kete, and the minute I sniffed, I was good. Immediately, like in 3 seconds, I was back to normal, even better than normal. I had strength. I was jumping around. I was laughing. I was A-okay. My boyfriend couldn't even understand it. He's like, "What? You were dying right now. How are you okay right now?" I'm like, don't worry. I already knew that I have to keep this thing a secret. It's not that like cocaine. Cocaine is, they call it the rich man's food, right? Anyone who uses cocaine around our cocaine circles, it's something to be proud of, around us druggy circles. You pull it out, you pull out your sachet, you put it on the table, you cut it with your bank cards. It's like a show of wealth. It's like a status symbol, right? With heroin, it's very different. Heroin has a stigma around it. It's looked at as a poor man's drug. It's looked at a very nasty thing. It's looked at as, people who use it are dirty. The word junkie, that's where it even comes from. They're junks, they're trash. So I already knew instinctively I need to hide the use. I need to hide this thing. So I was hiding it, but physically I was deteriorating. I was losing so much weight. I looked so sickly. I couldn't keep any money. Every time I would get my allowance in a week, it's done. And at the time, I was still so scared to enter the drug dens. So I kept sending this guy who was charging me like double. He was selling me a sachet of heroin for 300, where the street value is 120 to 150 shillings. So he was overcharging me and also bringing it to me. He would tell me, unajua ni nini? I can be locked up for how many years. So I'd have to pay him 1,000 bob on top just to bring it. So I was losing money, and I'm also not going to school. And my car never has fuel. And I'm hydrophobic. Heroin addicts want to take showers, because the high comes down and you just feel, so I'm dirty all the time. I'm stinking. Even this boyfriend of mine doesn't even want me around. The friends I would party with, these high-end friends, these elite people, they don't want to be around me, Kim, we're meeting at Sankara. I'm walking into that Sankara with slippers and I'm dirty and I'm like disheveled. And it also gives you a false sense of confidence where you look like that, you smell, but you think you're the king of the world. You think no one can tell you nothing. You know what I mean? So that overconfidence also. So I think, word gets around, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. So one of my aunties came down from the coast, called me over to another auntie's house in Nairobi and told me, hey, Chilimo, do you want to go to rehab? I've never heard of rehab. It was obviously I've heard about it like in the movies. I didn't even know there was rehab in Kenya. It was this far away thing that happens to like musicians and Whitney Houston and I don't know who. Not me here in Africa, but she made it seem as if you go, you can start from zero, again, fresh. We don't care how many universities you've been to. We don't care that your car is mashed up with cigarette holes everywhere and dents and whatever. We don't care. You'll go to rehab and we'll give you a second chance. And that sounded so good to me at the time because I was so isolated, away from my immediate family, my friends now, I was even isolating from my own self. I forgot who I was. It was just, I'm calling this guy to bring heroin all the time and I'm using and I don't want anyone next to me. So it seemed good. So I decided, yes, I'll go. That rehab experience wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what I expected. It was sort of it was like going to boarding school, a very cheap boarding school, and I really just felt as if I was in some kind of prison, and there were no tools or resources around me to assist me to recover. It was sort of like I was put in a stable to fatten up, and then after 3 months, we'll send you home. So, but they're telling my family something different. They're not experiencing this rehab. They're just being told that, oh, and she comes here, she's gonna be so good, and if she's serious, she's gonna change. And we offer this, and there's a gym. I mean, the gym is a metal bar with two paint cans on the edges filled with cement. It's crazy. So my parents were expecting to find a new and improved Kimberly, a mature Kimberly. Kimberly was coming to the realization of her purpose and meaning of life and everything. But what they found outwardly, I looked perfect. I've put on weight, my colors come back, I'm super brown, I'm smiling, I'm happy. So outwards, it looked like, yeah, it worked, it really worked. But internally, I knew I was still sick. I knew I was still battling with low self-esteem. I knew I was battling with fear of the future. I don't know what's going to happen. I've lost my mom. Everybody I was in school with has moved ahead in life. They've graduated, they have jobs, they have families. I'm stuck. I don't have any degree, I don't have any certificate, any diploma, nothing, I'm also embarrassed. Oh my God. When I started getting sober, I started remembering everything I'd done when I was on those drugs and how my friends are laughing at me. How will I rejoin Facebook? How will I rejoin Instagram? What picture will I post? Everybody's talking about me. Oh my God, I went to this person's house and I stole this money and I stole that. What are they going to say? So I had all of these things going on internally, but nobody could see it from the outside. So immediately after getting out of the rehab, the moment I got a moment alone, I think it was like 3 days or 4 days after, I immediately got weed and I was back on the weed. Immediately, I was asked, hey, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to work in media. Immediately, I got a job in media. I was working on Mombasa Road. I would go to this job in the media company, and I went to Kangwati to just say hi to the guys and just know how everybody's doing. And that's how we trick ourselves as addicts. You have to avoid people, places, and things. But I was like, I just want to be around people who understand me. It's always you people don't understand me. Normal society, my family, you guys don't. The people who understand me are people I used to use with. People who get it. So I went back to these people and I couldn't even fight the urge. It was like autopilot, back on the heroin. So now this job I can't sustain. I'm always leaving to go to Kangware, coming back, I'm nodding off on the desk. It's a sedative heroin. I'm smelling of weed and cigarettes, and it's just a bad thing. So I resigned before I got fired. I knew I was getting fired. And so then this relapse goes on and goes on, goes on, goes on. And now I'm even entering the drug den. Now I'm parking my car and walking into the drug den. And I'll never forget this date. It was February 15th. I'll never forget, 2017, I think. I was set up. The pushers are like, hey, this person has money. Heroin is a drug that is sold in the ghettos. It's not like cocaine that you get in suburbia, the Karens, the Rundas. No. Heroin is strictly in the ghettos, and many people in the ghetto grew up seeing this heroin, Many of their family members are even pushers, and many of the addicts who use that heroin in that den went to school together. Maybe they went to the same primary school in the area. Maybe they're related. So it's sort of like they're very together. So I was such an outsider. I'm parking my car. I'm walking in. People are asking me for things. I'm giving them money, So I became a target. I didn't know that. I'm busy. I want to go to where people understand me and I'm not judged, So they set me up on that February 15th. I had bought the drugs. I was going back in the car, called one of the drug dealers to add me more drugs, and they came with cops, and I was arrested, and I was thrown into a cell. And now this parent of mine who imagines this person went to rehab and they're A-okay is now being called on some, hey, your kid has been found with hard drugs. So it was a crazy, crazy, crazy experience. And I was just grateful to God that I found a way to get out of it. So fast forward, now I have to go to rehab again. Now it's obvious you're using. It's now black and white. So that's now what started my rehab journeys. It was like a revolving door. I would go into rehab, come out, few weeks later, relapse. Come out, few weeks later, relapse. Or go into rehab, come out running, running away. So this went on and on and on. And the last stint I had was being put in for a year when Corona came in. And I think it was more so just to keep her somewhere where I know where she is and she's not outside and there's no danger around her. I know she's there. So I was locked in for a year. When I came out, obviously I relapsed. When I relapsed for about 2 years. And this time, your family gets tired. They wash their hands completely. They're absolutely tired. Like, now you figure out your own life. Figure it out. So this is the time when I became homeless. This is the time when I learned how to beg for money on the street. This is the time when I fully got immersed into the street life and street culture. And I became what they quote unquote, a panya. I was completely one of the street guys. You know what I mean? And so this went on and on until about 2022. I think it was October or November. And I met an angel, deadass. I met an angel. A man came out of nowhere, prayed for me, and something changed. I really felt like, wait, what is happening, Chilimo? I looked around where I was sat at. I'm sitting on a stone. There's needles on the floor. There's toddlers playing on top of the needles. Their mothers have injecting needles hanging out of their arms, and they're like zombies hanging down like this. Another one has come in. He's bleeding. He's been beaten by the mob. His jaw is hanging off his face. It's just wiggling at the bottom. And this is normal. This was normal to me. This was a normal day in the den. But that day, I really looked around and I felt abnormal. I felt like, no, this is not me. This is not right. What the heck is going on? I suddenly felt as if it was like I woke up on another planet. So immediately I started thinking about ways of how can I get myself out of this situation? How can I get myself out of this addiction? And I knew rehab was off the table. I mean, I've been to rehab 6 times. I don't know how many millions they've spent on my rehabilitation. I knew that's off the table. I'm not even on speaking terms with my family. So I had to figure it out on my own. So I did my research. I heard about the methadone program. It's a harm reduction program. Our government, and thank God so much from the Kenyan government, agreed to offer methadone to we addicts. And it comes under harm reduction, HIV. So a lot of not a lot of, there are key populations in Kenya. Key populations, I refer to people who use drugs, female sex workers, men who have sex with men, and the trans community. So these populations, HIV transmission is super, super high amongst them. So our Kenya government and its partners, we have Global Fund, AMREF, these huge multinational organizations and charities that are fighting the spread of HIV and pushing for prevention and harm reduction. They came together and they tried to figure out interventions. What interventions can we put in place in these different communities to stop the spread and transmission, and also to, treat the ones who already are infected. And so methadone is one of the interventions. It's not that our government loves addicts or is happy for people to be addicted. No, it's a HIV thing, because heroin predominantly is used intravenous. You have to inject it. If you don't inject it, you roll it up in a cigarette. If you don't roll it up in a cigarette, you use a bangi. And if you're like me, and I've never met anyone like me, you sniff it, right? So methadone came in. It's a heroin substitute. It's a holistic program. The clinics are now being taken by city council, I think. So you have a counselor, you have a psychologist, and then finally you have the pharmacist who gives you your medication. And this helped me so much, because I was able to handle my withdrawals. I was able to stabilize. I was able to rebuild a life slowly, get a place to sleep. I started with a mabati of 2,000. I moved into a house worth 4,000. I moved into a house worth 16. And now I'm so happy in a house of 15. But I know I'm still on my journey. To me, it's so much money, but I know I'm still on my journey. And it also gave me time, to rebuild inside. It put back the building blocks that makes Kim Kim. I actually even put new building blocks. This new Kim, I wanted to be an honest person. I wanted to be a grateful person. I wanted to be like this and like that, because along the way in addiction, I was in hard drug addiction for 20 years. You pick up a lot of bad behaviors, You're sort of programmed to be shiesty. You're sort of programmed to be, a thug. You're programmed to, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You're programmed to lie, steal, We have all of these maladaptive behaviors that we've picked up that it takes work to get rid of and replace with better behaviors, and learn how to deal with society and normal people, and how to interact, how to manage money. At the time it was very impulsive. I get money, drugs. Now, how am I going to make this 10,000 last for 2 weeks, How am I going to feed myself? How am I going to clean myself? And I had to do it on my own. I didn't go back home as most addicts do in recovery. I toughed it out on my own. So how did I become a counselor? Well, I realized even when I was in active addiction that I was helping so many of my fellow addicts. People would always come to me with their problems, Kim, I don't have enough money. Kim, I got beaten by my fellow addict boyfriend and now I don't have a place to stay. Kim, I don't know what to do. I have TB. Kim, I don't have HIV. So I'd always talk and, pour into these addicts hope, we're going to keep going. We can fight through this thing. Don't worry. You don't have money. Let's go and Duru. Duru is to beg. I'd always encourage and always speak. And that was just naturally me. And even when I would go to these rehabs, I told you I was in rehab for a full year. About 6 months of being in this rehab, I was tired. I kept repeating the same classes. New groups would come in. They would find me there, would go through the 12-step program again together. And I got bored, right? So one day, the head counselor told me, hey, why don't you teach a class for me? I'm late. I'm held up somewhere. And since you've been in like 3 classes already, you can do it. So I taught that first class, and the addicts who had come into rehab to be rehabilitated went to the counselor and told them that we want Kimberly tomorrow again. So the counselor, like a joke, was like, okay, teach tomorrow again. And this went on, and I was in charge of all the classes. I was going to bed at night, and I'm a client as well. I would be going to bed planning next day's classes, and I wouldn't even be able to chill in my room because we're all staying in the same house. All these clients would enter my room. Hey, Kim, I was going through this. Hey, Kim, what do you think? So I realized, oh, wait, I think I'm actually good at this. And when I knew that actually this could be my calling is when the clients were refusing to have one-on-one sessions with the lead counselor and were requesting me. And that's when I realized, oh, wait. And so the director of the rehab actually came and told me that, hey, Kimberly, we want to give you a job. We want you to work here. We want it when you get discharged, you stay and work. Unfortunately, the director passed away and that wasn't realized. But then I clocked on that. I was like, wait, I think that I'm actually good at this, because most addicts, we never know what we're good at. We're usually good at most things, but then we don't know what our passion is, An addict can do this and do that and do that, but we are not really focused on one thing. So I decided to lock onto this thing. because I had so much guilt I was carrying around for all the bad things I had done, lied, I had stolen. I would do so many horrible things. And so I looked at this as a way to give back. And when I finally had my God moment and I met my angel who convinced me to change, I think that was the moment that I realized, wait, this is my purpose. My purpose is, and the reason for this 20-year-long addiction was all for me to gain experience and to completely understand what addiction is so that I can go back and help others like myself. Because I was born an empath. I love helping people. And so it just worked out in the nicest, in the greatest way. And it's only by God's design and plan. And I think it was actually today, Miss Kahiro, that I realized, oh my God, I've come such a long way. I look back at, I think I've been sober now, in November it will be 3 years. And I'm looking at what I've done in those 3 years, and I've had to step back and clap for myself because I've never known anyone else who's done as much in their first 3 years of recovery and had such an impact, not only on others, and even impacted in my own life. I saved myself. I had to save myself. And I think that's what I'm most proud about, that I pulled myself out of the abyss, out of the gutter, out of the mtaro, and I can stand tall. You've invited me to this beautiful office, and important people like you are interested in me. I mean, these are just the signs of, hey, you're doing something good. And so, why do I do all of this? Why do I do this? I honestly, because I'm a Christian first and foremost, I really do believe that it's God's work, and I believe it's my calling. And also because I want to rewrite the addict story, especially here in Kenya. Almost every family in Kenya has an addicted loved one. And the stigma and the labels that are put on these addicts are very derogatory. That person is a failure. That person is a loser. That person is lazy. That person is a thief. That person, I don't even know I gave birth to that person. So we're put down by these heavy labels, and many of them start to believe it to be true. Really believe that they're useless. And sometimes with the addiction, it takes a long while for somebody to fight themselves, to fight back and get back into their actual lives. And so a lot of people have wasted many years. Well, not wasted, let me correct that. Not wasted. Gained character development and experience. So all those years, you find somebody's like maybe 45 or 50, and they're finally, they finally had their God moment, or they finally decided to recover. And, they are sober, but they feel like they can't do anything. I'm 36, I'm a woman. In the Kenyan context, I am a show, I am off the market, I'm useless. You don't have a career, you don't have a family, you're not married. I refuse those labels completely. And so I hope that other addicts can see through my story that I share on social media. I'm very, very open because for a lot of addicts, we fear so much shame and we fear so much guilt. And these are the things that crush us and make us relapse. When you're sober, you're getting a job, and then somebody comments, na wewe ulikuwa unaniibia. I'd rather go and say, niliibia mtu kwa siku moja kwa nyumba yake. I'd rather own that story. So I'm trying to show them that, hey, I've gone through it, I've been through it, and I'm still standing, and I can still be proud of myself. That was the old me, and that was the Kim under drug addiction, right? That's not who I truly am. So I'm hoping addicts can find their true selves as well. Okay, I'm a bit ambitious. So right now what I'm doing, I'm an addiction counselor. I work freelance. I'm an outreach worker, self-employed. I go into communities, homeless communities, drug addicted communities, and I try and empower them. I empower them through the arts. So a lot of guys are musicians, a lot of guys are dancers, a lot of guys are actors. So I try and encourage them to, to look at those talents and to see where they can take them to. And obviously I post them on TikTok and I share online, and I'm just hoping that they can, they can see themselves in a different way, and maybe that will push them to change and get sober. I also support a lot of mothers and children on the street. By support, I mean when I have extra money, I'll buy food, I'll buy Pampers, I'll buy whatnot. I have 2 people who I pay rent for, so I'm kind of like a philanthropist, but a broke philanthropist. And then I also have my social media work, and sometimes I get people who want me to market for them their businesses, so I get money through that sometimes. But in the future, what I'm really fighting for, I hope to have a seat at the table I like this saying that goes, nothing for us without us. Decisions are being made in big offices in government about the addicts or people with HIV or the homeless community without us being involved in those decisions. So I'd love to have a seat on the table. I would also really, really love to have a platform somewhere in media. You know, I like telling stories. I like laughing. I don't know where that could be, maybe radio. I even started my own podcast. So maybe the podcast will, gain. Also internationally, I would love to meet other addicts like myself who are in recovery or who are in active addiction to learn more from each other, because this field is evolving every day. You know, new research is being done every single day. The brain is being mapped every single day. So we're really starting to understand addiction as a disease. And so I'd love to meet fellow people like me where we can come together, share our stories, know our differences and what makes us come together, what we have in common, and then try and find lasting solutions, because addiction is not going to go away anytime soon. It's here and it's with us, especially with the social changes, the social pressures, living in a third world country. This causes a lot of emotional pain, a lot of breakages in families, and the children, it damages them. And so they grow to be broken people, and they feel that pain with addictions, whether it's behavioral, whether it's chemical, whatever. So I would just love to be part of the solution, basically.